I'm the Director of Business Retention and Expansion here at the Windsor-Essex Economic Development Corporation. Joining me today is Sabrina DeMarco, the Executive Director of the Small Business Center, and we'll be introducing our speakers shortly. We are really excited. This has been a project that we've been working on for quite some time, and today will represent the first two parts of a 9-part journey of entrepreneurship, skill building, technology training, and community development. But before I start and before we kick off today's session, I just want to provide you with some of the information that really is going to help you to help us support you during the next few months. As part of the program, you'll be receiving an invite, I think you might have already received it, to join our Emerging Technology Speaker Series Slack workspace. The Slack workspace is something that we're working on as a new technology to help develop communication and community. So this tool is going to be valuable for you to support any questions you might have, if you want to interact with other participants, if you want to interact with our speakers, share best practices, resources, and overall just join the community of other entrepreneurs who are joining us today. Secondly, each speaker and each speaking session will conclude with a challenge to be completed or implemented by the participants. They could be mostly technology challenges, but there could be some other challenges in there. These are designed to help you incorporate the processes and technologies that you might be learning during the next 9 sessions that we're providing. They could increase your efficiencies, drive your organization forward, and always, we hope, present positive change for growth. As well, there's going to be a group coaching session monthly that you'll be able to access because you've joined this forum. You'll be guided by Laura Creston, a strategist and leadership coach, who will help you to not only will she share ideas and share resources, but she's going to help you and assist you in executing those challenges that you get to make sure that you have no problems implementing. If you stay tuned, you'll be receiving an Outlook invite for Laura, and she'll be closing out our session the next session, so you can get some more information on that. We really want to entice you to complete all the challenges that you'll have. So we're providing an opportunity for people who complete the challenges to enter into a draw to receive a $1,000 gift card from Apple, so that you might be able to purchase some technology that will help your business move forward, as well as my personal favorite, 3 months of personal coaching with professional leadership strategist and coach Laura Creston, a value of $2,000. There'll also be some random draws throughout the event. So we're just asking, if you receive a random draw and you receive it at your house, it'll be a surprise. We're just asking that if you are involved on social media, maybe you just give us a shout out. On that note, I'm going to hand over to Sabrina, who's going to introduce our first speaker in the series, and welcome, Sabrina.
Well, thank you, Lee, and hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here with all of you to kick off today's Emerging Technology Speaker Series and to introduce our speaker, Paul Zikopoulos, IBM VP Cognitive Systems Professional Speaker and Author. Paul Zikopoulos is an award-winning professional writer and speaker who has been consulted on the topic of AI and big data by the popular TV show 60 Minutes. Most recently, Paul was named to Analytics Insights 2019 Top 100 AI and Big Data Influencers list, and has appeared on over a dozen other global experts to follow and influencers lists. You'll also find Paul taking a very active role around women in technology, included a seated board member for Women 2.0, who he became involved with after his tweet was mentioned on The View, another TV show, General Workplace Inclusivity, completing the intensive D&I certificate at Cornell University, and coding for veterans. In addition, he sits on the Master of Managed Analytics and AI program boards at Canada's prestigious Queen's University. On a personal note, Paul's always keeping up with his grassroots, a newbie with no computer courses before coming to IBM. He knows on his dumbest days, he's never as dumb as he feels, and on his smartest days, he's never as smart as he feels either. Ultimately, Paul is trying to figure out the world according to Chloe, his daughter, whom he notes didn't come with a handbook and is more complex than that topic of big data and AI, but more fun too. Welcome, Paul. It's a pleasure to have you join us. The platform is all yours.
Oh, well, thank you. That was quite the intro. I almost feel like nervous now that I'm going to screw it up and get my Zoom going. But can you all see my screen? Everyone can see what's going on right now and stuff like that. So, okay, so here's one thing I want you to do now. If you have a QR code reader, or you know how to use it on your iPhone, zoom in on that QR code. Otherwise, I want you all to grab your phone that's, I'm sure, beside you, and go to www.menti.com and head on over there, and you can write down this code. I'm going to bring this screen up later when we go to check it out anyways, and that's 9413003. So I'll let you take a look at that one more time. Usually if you swipe from the top on an iPhone and you'll see the little QR reader, you can just zoom in on that. We're going to do some live surveys. But listen, it's an honor to be here today. I'm actually thrilled. Lee and the Windsor Essex Economic Development Council are world class. I worked with them a bit ago. It seems like forever ago now. And Lee called me up and she says, Paul, can you help me? I'm like, yes. And then she's like, entrepreneurial spirit? I'm like, absolutely. And for entrepreneurial women with men as allies, I'm like, I'm all in. So we have a really cool series coming for you over the coming months that I think is going to really, it blew my mind when I looked at the people that I've come to know in my travels, and we look to share our knowledge with you. And I'm going to kick it off with this thing I call virtual spinner winner. So these are tips and tricks I've kind of learned along the way, and what we do now in, I guess, the new normal or the new abnormal. The interesting thing here is all the stuff you're going to learn, even if COVID wasn't around, they make you faster, more efficient, more collaborative, and better. And when you think about the way we work, we have to really rethink about it. And I have a friend, a neighbor, she's on the Canadian speed skating team and also on the Canadian women's rugby team. And she works on a farm and she doesn't have a place to work out anymore. And so she found new ways to work, right? She's literally squatting the calves, right? And I thought that was an ingenious way, and it is humane, so we're told. And now we want to think about ourselves of how can we go ahead and think of new ways to get more efficient, more engaging, and all those types of things. And I think I'll start off with this. Time is a gift. It truly is a gift. It's a gift in terms of how we look at our parents or our friends who we can't see, especially after Thanksgiving during this COVID crisis. But it's also a gift in terms of what you do with that time. I think one of the most important things that I've done for whatever mountain or pothole of success I've ever had was I manage my time because it is a gift. And I'll tell you this, when we get to Monday, every single person on this call is going to start that week with the same 7 days in it. We're all going to get there, I'm going to assume. So you're going to get the same 24 hours and the same minutes on every single hour. And what you choose to do with that gift is going to be up to you. And there's one thing that's always resonated me, a piece of logic one of my business profs told me. It said, time is a zero-sum game. And what that really means is it all adds up to the time in the day. So if you pull me into a meeting in my enterprise company, that's an hour waste of my time, then I took an hour from something else. And that's really some of the kind of intuitions behind what I want to share with you about getting efficient and engaging. You have to think about time, not just in your own, but what about time for your customers or across your value chain when you engage your customers, when you go to seek funding for your startup and those types of things. So time is precious for everyone. So here's where I want you to jump back here to menti.com or pick up your phone or go to a web browser. We'll see if you guys and folks can get there. So www.menti.com, M-E-N-T-I, and the code is 9413003. And if we jump over there, oh, good. You guys are all coming in right now. So I'm going to jump on mine right here. So you can see, I want you to all put in your biggest concern heading into the year 2021. We just want to kind of track this as we go ahead here throughout the series and figure it out. I'll give you a couple more minutes to vote. I'm going to come in here and vote here. So, job, health was one, and let's go with my daughter's education is another. So I'm going to submit those in. I see uncertainty coming to the top there for sure. Health, funding, yes, that's a big one, COVID-19. So we'll allow you to keep voting in there. I won't shut that down. I'll give you about 5 more seconds here. And then I want to go to another question for you, just to get to know everyone a little bit. What's your virtual game like? Like, are you the virtuoso of virtual? You're like Trello, Mural, tattoos. Are you pretty good? You're using Slack or Microsoft Teams or other collaborative software like that. Just the basics. Zoom was like, whoa, that was a leap forward. Or like you just got the internet, so you're kind of, yeah. I would have seen a lot of people in the Zoom area for sure. That was new to many. I see most people exactly where we're seeing them on number 13. Look, this presentation is going to give you tips and tricks no matter where you are on the spectrum and where you can try it. So I'll give you a couple more minutes here, a couple more seconds for a vote. I still see a couple coming in here. And so now we're going to take the color that you voted with, and I'm going to go and ask that you draw and vote on something. So we'll kind of see a correlated kind of survey here. What's your virtual game like? But where do you feel you could use some help? Right? Is it virtual presentation skills and technology? Is it getting better with whiteboarding skills? And so you can see the person voting on getting better with whiteboarding skills voted, they're just new to Zoom. That was their leap forward. So let you run in here for a bit. We can see in the bottom here that we've got 13 votes, so they're coming in. So it seems like everyone's getting through there, and everything I'm going to show you. And when you think about virtual presentations and that kind of stuff, when I share that with you, here's one right here. This is called Mentimeter. And I'm going to share with you tools that I'm aware of. There's like other tools in the category, and I'll try to share their names as well. I'm not from any vendor here or anything like that. So remember, when we do presentations, it's about visual, it's about engagement, it's about those kinds of things as well. Okay, so I think we'll maybe go one more question here. What is the speed of the internet where the Wi-Fi signal is the worst in your home? So if you were to go farthest away from your router, you know, what is that speed? So you guys tell me what that is. It's like dial-up is number 1. That's like under a megabit per second, unusable. Number 2 is web pages load, but not Netflix. Number 3 is Netflix is watchable. 4, you'll get some Netflix glitches. And 5, you're like Usain Bolt. So I know where I am because I just got a fiber optic cable today. So I'll let you folks vote. So you can see in here, the average is somewhere where we could kind of get to Netflix. Netflix requires about 5 megabits a second. The folks here, there's parts of you where your house is where the internet is simply unusable. Even here, you're going to run into some problems when you're webcasting. So that's pretty good for me. Let's go back to our presentation here. And so I thank you for sharing that information with me. And let's start with section 1. I'm going to give you 4 sections as we race through here. And 1 is engagement. Engagement of employees, of customers, of partners, of your value chain. How about just engaging people, right? And this is really important. So I've run, and I work at IBM, as I've said in my intro. So over about 3,000 webcasts with clients, with value chains, with our own employees in my own team, and across different brands. I've been running analytics for about 3 years on how long people pay attention to a call. That is the amount of time where I'm on this call, but then I just went into another application, maybe to answer some emails while someone's talking. And 49% give you 15 minutes of a 60-minute call. I think we're going to do better on this call because I think we're bringing you some really neat stuff that's engaging. But the bottom line is when you're sitting in front of a screen before COVID, and even now, even more so where you're more in front of a screen all the time, attention is rare. And so why is attention is rare? Well, it goes back to what I told you earlier, because time is a gift. And so you often hear about death by PowerPoint, bored to death by PowerPoint, right? People are like, oh, we won't do any PowerPoint presentations, but PowerPoint is no good. It's all these bullets. Well, it's probably not the tool that sucks. It's probably the person. You see, I've been bored to death on a whiteboard. I've been bored to death on a podcast. I fell asleep in movie theaters more often than not on a bad movie. So boring is boring. And that's hard truth number 1. So if you think of all the times you were bored in the different modalities, I think it's safe to say that it's not necessarily the modality that's boring. And while we can add different modalities to it, we have to bring an engagement factor. Which brings me to hard truth number 2. There can't be a better place to lose an audience if you've not accepted hard truth number 1. You've got to engage, engage, engage. either engage with activities or live whiteboards or Mentimeter voting, or even just better visuals than what you typically see in a PowerPoint. And those are very important because time is a gift. Now, one of the things that is killing people on engagement more than anything else right now is technology. It's befelling the many, if you will. And I've seen this from time to time. You know, you get worried about it every time you present. And so you have to have your technology locked down in what you want to do. And so here are some tips and tricks, and this could be a whole session on its own, but pre-test your webcam for lighting, right? What's in the background? Put a profile picture on your account for WebEx or Zoom so you're not just an initial. Never use your laptop's microphone. Just don't do it. It's not any good. Potential for video conference issues are under 15 megabits a second. I would say that 60 to 65% of the voting audience today are under there, and I think I'm going to show you a way where you can fix that. And the answer is a mesh network, and we'll talk about that. But what you should know is different parts of your house have different speeds. And the fastest Wi-Fi you're going to get is off we call a 5 gigahertz band as opposed to a 2 gigahertz band. But the problem with 5 gigahertz is it probably goes outside your office in an extra 30 feet. So you want to go test that, and you want to know how your particular webcasting software, whether it's WebEx or Zoom or GoToMeeting, etc., what it's looking like on the packets. That's the fancy technical word of how we flow our pictures and our voices over a webcast. And you can actually see those types of things and understand how to take kind of mediation actions. For example, I will turn off the video if the internet is shaky. Or number 4, depending on the time, if it's like everyone's Fortniting or Netflixing, I'll have a backup plan and I tether to my cell. So I flick a button on my cell before I do an important call. I can share that internet if I should lose the internet. Noisy backgrounds. You know, I have construction going on all around me. I was sharing with the panel today. To block that out, beat your kids if that's what's causing it, or perhaps just get a noise canceling headset, which is a little more humane. If you've never used one of these, prepare to be amazed. You know, I've flown over 3 million miles in my life, and I've been using them for 15, maybe 2 decades. I bought a pair of my dad just to read at home, and you won't believe the amount it cuts down. And trust me, you'll hear everything, but it cuts out background noise. So those are the kinds of things you want to think about a technology. But what about engagement? So think about new and creative ideas to engage your teams, engage prospective investors or clients. So one thing we did with a team was have a surprise pizza lunch. So we ordered Domino's to 50 different people's homes as a surprise luncheon on a team call that we had. And then we extended that to a client. The client absolutely loved it. It takes some effort to order 50 pizzas. And we use Domino's. You can see the guy in the green shirt. I don't know if that's a good advertisement for Domino's. That's quite the greasy pizza, but maybe had a meat lovers. But it really brought a community together and tons of smiles. And we went on WebEx, and what you need to do when you're on WebEx or Zoom in this era is first understand we're not all in the perfect of places for conference calls. Things are going to go wrong, and the world needs more empathy now, especially with technology. But we brought people in and we ate and we socialized, and then we started to up the game. We started to think of what are different ways to engage in a typical webcast. Maybe you'd send everyone a pizza. How about play bingo? So there's like, you can see the website at the bottom, freebingocards.com. We did this with a client for prizes. They loved it. People started to get dressed up. They came in and we had a bingo game, and you can play around with, you know, the rows that you have to get to win, right? Ours was a P for power systems. And then we did at the bottom left, you can see we did a time trivia challenge where you would vote and it would show a leaderboard and those kinds of things. So you can stack these ideas I'm giving you kind of to get more and more engaging. And as you look and you adopt new technologies, you can even think of different ways to get engaging. So here's kind of a cause that we're doing on the team that expands to over 1,000 people. Is we are walking as a team from the furthest employee who's in Brazil, São Paulo, Brazil, all the way to one of my executives who works for me who lives in Bristol. And every day people can log anonymously what they did for activity. You know, did you run, did you walk, and those types of things. And we have to get to so many steps. We're going to have a giant party at the house, or we're going to get to a cause. Walk for the Cure is a terrific fundraising type thing you can do. And we built this with an intern in Slack. This is actually a Slack bot. And if you look at the bottom, you can see we're about 81.8% to our goal. Anything that can bring community together, I think is well worth your while for engagement and lock down your technology. All right, so let's go to step 2 here. How can you be totally productive and cool? Number 1 is you gotta have a fast internet more than ever. And it's not just what your internet speed is. So you can go pay Rogers or Bell for a 300 megabit service, 100, whatever. You are now in contention with everybody in your home, and you're in contention with everybody in your neighborhood. And the answer is something called the mesh network. Now, what I want you to do when you're after this call is go into the worst Wi-Fi at your house, where you think it is, and go to a website called fast.com. And when you go to fast.com, if I was to jump in here now, I could probably pull it up now. You can go do a test. You can see I'm pulling 560 megabits a second or so. Like, this is very, very fast. Obviously, I'm a network guy. I've got this finely tuned, right? Some of you think about it, we're pulling 5. So that's what Netflix uses to determine how fast you can go. So I went to my wife's office. This is her craft room in the basement. And I put in a mesh network. I use the Nighthawk, but Google Nest, Orbi, they're super simple to set up. I couldn't believe it. Like, any non-technical person could get this going. Bell and Rogers can sell them to you as well for a rental. Probably run you $200 to $300. Don't skimp if you're buying them. We took her speed from 6.6 megabits a second to 110, and it completely changed the game. So you got to lock that down. Make sure wherever you're going to work or wherever you're going to go to is going to be fast. And I think another area is to look at, how do I leverage my webcam to its full potential, right? Right now, I'm pretty high def, I think, because I'm using a tool called Camo. And Camo actually takes your cell phone and turns it into a webcam. And I think that's pretty fascinating, actually. I'm going to go switch my webcam now. And now this is the webcam that's coming off my laptop. And the resolution likely dropped for you, because the laptop webcams, especially on the Macs, they're not good at all. I mean, they haven't been upgraded at all. You look at the phone of even an iPhone 8, it's a tremendous camera. You probably have one lying around, or I'm using an XR right now for this. And then you have all kinds of control, zoom, and better, kind of almost a professional camera when you look at the iPhone 12. Simple thing, you mount it on the back and off you go. And you've just upped your game in terms of the resolution of what you're seeing. So Game of Thrones, what does Game of Thrones have to do with getting more productive? Well, we were talking about on the pre-call, someone was like, oh, my ugly background. So if you ever look at how the pros really juice up a movie, it's all green screen, right? And that's just kind of chroma fix at the back. This is the green you can see. And that is a very easy color to superimpose something over and find the defining lines, right? So you can see in different scenes in Game of Thrones, when she's petting the dragon, it's really this big green stick with a paper mache green head, right? And then they superimpose on it. So you can do that. And here are some ideas I've got for you if you want to put up your own high quality background that may have your logo in it, that may have your mission in it. You can see the cost varies. You know, it's $100 for that piece that goes behind your chair. But on Amazon, just a screen, even the setup at $75 with some lighting is pretty good. And you can paint a room, depending what you're doing, right? You may want to paint a wall in your room with this video paint. Once you do that, you get a lot of control either for yourself, or if you pass it down the line to a video production company to do a lot of stuff. And on the back, you can see there's a $5 piece of clip art I bought, which is a laptop, green screen in the back, and now I can take any video I make and put it within there, so it's not full screen. I think that's a lot more engaging. Now, if you don't want to do the green screen, then all of these tools have a background that you can put in. And the truth of the matter is, Zoom has got the best one. So you can go and add in a background that's there, a virtual background, so your brand. I just happened to grab this one. I thought it was cute. The interesting thing when you're not green screening, and by the way, these webcasting tools will respect your green screen, so you can load something up and it'll be even more efficient, is you'll get these ghost images. You know, someone might walk into your room. That's my wife's arm, right, when she walked into the room at the time. So you got to be aware of that kind of stuff. But the neat thing is they're putting all kinds of feature touch-ups, so lightness and even on skin correction and tone correction on those kinds of things. This is the same stuff that your Snapchat is using when you go to fix up an image. But there's a lot of privacy stuff here, in my opinion, because in order to do what I'm about to show you, you have to do what's called landmark estimation on your face. You'll learn about that in my AI talk. But once you do this, you've pretty much given a fingerprint of what you look like. But if you're on Facebook and Instagram, you already did it. So here you can even see they're adding now eyebrows and mustache and beards and lips. And so my daughter made what she called a Super Mario filter. And I'm going to go with it's not a good look for Paul Z. I know I'll never grow a mustache. But these are the kinds of things, skin blemishes and all kinds of stuff like that. So those are kind of powerful features. But I think the best feature that I've discovered is when you can put yourself over your slides. And then you can start to design your slides where you're in the corner. And I thought that was super engaging. And you could point up to certain areas in the slide when you practice enough. And that's quite the powerful scenario, in my opinion. If you're kind of not comfortable on the technology side, some quick and easy fixes to do is right here and not that expensive. Like the $135 option, I don't know if you can see the side of the wall. I did this on my wall. This is where I recorded the video that you may have seen for my intro. I just painted the wall white, had a bunch of wood, and just hammered it in there with a nail gun. But you can buy really cool temporary wallpaper now. It's called temp paper. So my wife's a home stager, and we've been experimenting with this. $75, and you can throw it up, and you just take it down. There's no paint. There's no water. It's just an adhesive on there. Then you cover the adhesive like those sticky stuff no slip stuff you put on your dash, and you take it off. Or you can go buy a screen from $85 to $120. That's another way to quickly block out the background. You know, I have some employees who literally live in a 500 square foot apartment in San Francisco. I mean, their kitchen is their living room, is their dining room. And this is a technique that they use to get instant hide the mess, if you will. So just some other kinds of ideas. And another really engaging way to capture people is through what we call a light board. So you can see there, I'm in the back and it's a dark room, and in front of me is glass. And I actually write on the glass, and then we flip it in video production. So these things, you can make them at your house. A high quality one, like the one I have, will cost you about $1,000. You can make a lower quality one. You just buy lower quality glass, maybe about $200 or $300. People love these when they see them and you explain and draw as you go. So yet another idea I want you to think about or potentially try to up your engagement factor. Productivity booster, number one. If you don't work on two screens, you need to start immediately. Like, I almost want you to leave this Zoomcast right now and go start on it. Well, don't do that, but you get the point. Lots of technologies out here to support you, but just on the go, you can take your iPhone or your iPad and use it as a second screen. Okay, then you can up your game from there. But even that, when you're on a Zoomcast, often I put that on the iPad to the side of me, and then I'm just working on my laptop when I'm on the road, like if I was in a hotel room. And it's a great way to keep productive. Now, the latest version of the Mac software, Mac OS, it supports this natively. But there's tools like Duet Display, that is a software implementation of this, works on Windows. And Luna Display is actually a hardware-assisted share mechanism. So you put a little USB, it's a plug into your USB port, and it makes it go much faster. But you can see on this screen that this particular right here is kind of sharing the two screens, which is pretty cool, right? Now, if you want to up your game, you can go on the left. So I actually use 3 screens. So that's my office there, that's my desk. And on the left and the right is where I keep streaming information or research. And then the main panel is where I talk or present from and those types of things. Now, this slide was really to talk about a stand-up desk. Your health is your productivity, right? So if you're creating back problems and you're seated more and more, it's a virtual because you're not walking to the office or walking into the cafeteria to get a drink with your friends or something like that. You know, set timers to get up and move. But I found this stand-up, sit-down desk a godsend for me. I've spent a lot of time in planes and sitting down writing books. And now I'll stand up for a half hour, then sit down. You'll spend about $200 to $500 if you want a manual or half desk, and about $300 to $800 for the full desk. That's a base that you see here that I use. And then I just bought a piece of live edge wood, had that made for a couple $100 and gave it a kind of a sleek look. But that whole stand up, sit down thing probably changed my life about 2 years ago. Completely eliminated a lot of the back pain that I was having from being seated all day. You can't be engaging if you're not healthy. Hey, I'll give you one more tip on productivity, then we'll talk about some tools. Resiliency, not just in you as in your physical self, which we talked about, but the resiliency of your operations. You absolutely need to be taking mirror copies of your infrastructure. So on Windows, there's a tool that I've used called Paragon Drive Copy. There's others. I think Ghost View is one I've used before. The go-to application on Mac is called Carbon Copy Cloner. It is a must-have. So what a lot of people do, and we do this at IBM too, like we always back up to the cloud. Okay, I get my files. But you know what? When my laptop goes down, if it had a huge crash, it's not just the files. I need my runtime. And the wild thing about mirror copies is they are exactly that, a mirrored copy. So when I take this Carbon Copy Cloner and I back it up to a disk, a little mini disk like this, I can plug that back into my laptop and it will boot off that disk, and it's a running operating system with all the data of the last backup. So I had an outage when I was in Paris last year. I literally took that disk, I plugged it into someone else's Mac. It wasn't even the same Mac as mine. And I was able to present and run my environment. Even if it's just to get through the day, just to invoice the, a client, if it's to get some emails out and those types of things. This is about business continuity, right? And if you really want to have a foolproof plan, you need to be backing up your data so that you have iterations of the files, maybe something like a time machine on your Mac. And then you're going to want to have this Carbon Copy Cloner. And if you want to be super smart or safe, you have one copy of Carbon Copy Cloner of your laptop, and then take another one and store it somewhere else. Fireproof safe, maybe at a friend's house, maybe somewhere else. And that way you have true disaster recovery. So I keep 3 copies of every computer in my home, and this keeps you running. Resiliency matters here, and that's important. I want you to spice stuff up with imagery. And people are like, where can I get free images? And every time that you type in the word free images for presentations, I promise you, you're going to end up at some click that takes you to download something you didn't even ask for. I'm just getting to know Pexels, but unsplash.com is unbelievable, right? So it's just amateur photographers. You come in, you can decide if you want to go and search for specific type of photos, but landscape or something, but I'm going to go mountain. I just wanted some mountains, right? And, I want that orientation only in landscape because I want to fill a 16 by 9 slide. And I'm telling you, there's literally thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of photos. I mean, there's 68,000 photos of mountains. 80% of what I do for imagery comes from here. And I used to go to sites like 123rf.com or Adobe Stock and those types of things. And I still do, but only when I can't find it on Unsplash. I cut costs and I get some really rich imagery to engage. So make sure you check that out. And here's my other tool tip for you. Super resolution imaging. So this is based on what we call generative adversarial networks. And that's an AI thing. And I'm going to talk about those. They're quite interesting. But it's the ability to upsample the quality of your images or your videos on what gets handed to you. Because there's 2 ways to do that, right? I can go and take something and then I hand it off to a marketing agency and they're like, we need better quality. Or maybe I just become self-service to get higher quality imagery and video of what we're taking. So I'm going to show you an example of this. There's a picture of my daughter from a number of years ago. You can see it's pixelated on both sides. When I run this through a product called Topaz Gigapixel AI, look at that. And you can see in the corners, where it starts to mess up over here by the van, but I really upsampled that image in a heartbeat. And that has made me super efficient in putting together presentations and making them higher quality. No one likes those pixelated images at all. And it can even do it with video. So this is a video called The Arrival of a Train at Tasseriote. And I'm not sure if you know about this, is like the most famous movie in history because of its quality. People were said to run for the doors because they saw the train coming. So this was the start of Hollywood film. So that's the original film on the right, and this is video enhanced. Even for your own personal lives, these two types of tool sets or genre of tools is going to help you just get more engaging all the time. Higher quality video, higher quality imagery, and you can see how kind of clear that is on the left. So I encourage you to take a look at those things for your own personal life. Usually when I present this stuff, audiences are like, where did I get that tool? You can try it for free. Again, I don't get paid on it, but it's the best tool that I've seen out there. So we've talked about engagement, talked about how to make you more productive and how to make you more engaging from a visual perspective, a background perspective, and those types of things. Now there's probably a bunch of kinds of tools that I feel like you got to get to know. You got to get to know because you can apply many of the engagement tips and techniques that I've talked about, right? But they're also going to become the de facto tools of the new abnormal that is post-COVID. And I'd like to cover a couple of them with you here. These are a whole slew of them. I'm going to talk about Mural. Again, everybody has the kind of alternate choices. On the right is Slack. You can look at Microsoft Teams. I'm going to talk about Trello. You could look at Monday.com or Asana. We're using Zoom today, WebEx GoToMeeting. I use Mentimeter for that poll. You could use Poll Anywhere. So I'm not advocating a vendor here. But let's talk about Mural for a moment. Mural is consider it a whiteboard, a virtual whiteboard. But there's so many use cases and areas of productivity, it will amaze you even in engagement. It's one thing for us to get together as a team and do a design thinking session. And so we do that. I'll grab my team together and you can see the names of people who are pulling sticky notes and those types of things. What's interesting on the left is that could even be my clients. So when I want to engage with clients and talk to them about what is the importance and what is the impact curves, you can see whether these were my clients or an internal project, folks are moving stuff around. Now, pay attention to the number 4 you see and the number 2, and then now look at the right. There's even voting mechanisms. So you can imagine working with a group of 30 people on priorities, people get to vote on the different sticky notes. And that's a very powerful engagement tool, right? I can invite people to participate in the conversation. And when folks participate in the conversation, they become part of the conversation. And I onboarded a bunch of students here. Mark's a guy who works for me. I asked him to run this for me. So I had 4 students come in during COVID. They can't come to my lab, you know. So what do? I mail them an iPhone, I mail a Mac, and I want to get to know them. So we come in here and let's get to know you. And they're uploading and dragging into Mural where they go to university. This one in the top right, Riley went to Trent. Gabby went to Waterloo on the bottom left. Derek is from Canada and the USA. You know, Riley loves cooking. He's into AI. You can see a neural network there. This is a really neat way when you want to get to know someone. It doesn't even have to be employees who work for you, who you can't onboard in person. Clients, funders, consortiums where you're working for a better good. There are a ton of ideas here, and I've only shown you 2. And you can see in our team, we've got lots of them. We have a stand-up, we have a project kickoff, we have a voting mural, we have an empathy map, a hopes and fears, competitive wargaming. Yes, I like to think my team's pretty brilliant, but we kind of cheated. There's tons of templates available for you. Whatever you want to do, even play the game of Jeopardy if you want. So you go into Mural, pick a template to help you out. Even if it's sharing a book reading club, there's a bookshelf in there. And I think you'll find the way that you engage a virtual book club, for example, will be completely different. And this will change many, many things. So that's Mural. It's probably my top tip to get to know on tools you may or may not have used. So here, let's talk about meetings for a moment. The average worker spends like 4.5 hours in weekly status meetings, right? And they spend about 4.5 hours preparing for them. And I actually think those folks get off, well, not lucky. Remember, these are status meetings. What about all the other meetings? So you got 9 hours of your 44-hour work week, right, spent preparing for a status meeting where all you do is tell people what's going on. And this is where tools like Microsoft Teams or Slack are a massive, massive productivity boost. The numbers I'm going to share with you are from an organization that I transformed, well over 100 people. And the biggest mistake I found when I took over the org was folks saw Slack as just a messaging tool, a direct messaging tool. And that is a huge mistake. It's actually a productivity and collaboration tool. It gives everybody a voice. And in a world of inclusion, right, where we have social out groups, maybe by what you do in a job or by rank, this gives everyone an inclusive manner in which to read and understand what's going on in the org and reduced context switching. So when we went to Slack, we dropped our email by 60%. We eliminated status calls. We got 5 times more productive in meetings. We do less meetings and our meeting times are less. Now that is as much as a culture as it is a tool, but this is a great kind of tool, collaboration, Slack, Microsoft Teams, to get going on that kind of stuff. And let me show you the stuff we got rid of. Quick, hyper-thread in my inbox. You can see the subject, right? You've seen this before, 40 people on an email, 2 or 3 people are responding. I don't want to see that. That should be a discussion in Slack. All the replies can go in there. It's neat, and I can go and read that. And on top of that, you're going to get people that don't want to follow that, so they'll keep emailing you. You could forward the email into the Slack application and create a conversation there. So that was one thing that we did. You'd be surprised. It's about 25% of my inbox was reply alls. And then trying to go and have an announcement, right? And so if someone got promoted at IB, I remember when I got promoted to a director before I became a VP, they made a 6:30 call because it was the only time they could find. Why? Because everyone's got meetings all the other times, right? And people are like, well, I don't want to get up at 3:30 in the morning my time. And then Paul gets on, is like, oh, thanks for the promotion. And everyone's like, 2 people say thanks and that's it, right? We had like a couple hundred people on the call. Make it a community thing, right? The comments can be more heartfelt. Everyone can participate. Nobody's going to stay on the call for an hour to hear 200 people, but everyone can come in here. And then I had this keepsake. So these are all the kinds of ideas you bring forward. Agenda changes. This is a real screen cap from my calendar if I was to fully look at it. Someone changes the meeting, they add an attendee, they add an agenda item. Why are you sending me all these updates and emails? Just put the agenda in Slack and update me in Slack. Very simple, right? So, and stop making meetings difficult to coordinate. Nobody looks at free time anymore, but sending emails around that say, hey, what times are you available? Hey, everybody send me 3 times they're available. I would just use a poll in Slack. You can just kind of vote on when you want to have the meeting. 10 times faster. Those are just like 4 of the 20 things that we did to change the way we work. Trello. So Trello is another pretty important thing. Other products like it, competitors, I guess, Asana is one. It's a Kanban style collaboration, so from the lean, kind of 6 Sigma lean methodology. And it really tells you project management. Think of Monday.com would be another example here. So if you look at this and you think about it for a moment, I get these project boards, I track them, and that's the first stage in Trello. But you need to take it to the next level. And it's the same with Slack. If you just look at Slack as a DM tool, that's not going to work too well, right? If you really want to change productivity, you flush out in Slack on the different Slack bots you can create. You use Remind as an example of a tool set in there that hardly anybody knows about. So in Trello, I go and create these boards. And just like Mural, there are tons of templated Trello boards for you to get started from. And there's great integration. So if someone goes and changes a due date in Trello, I'm going to give you an example, it will go and inform you in Slack because of this tight integration. So here's an example of a Trello board I have to rehire Gabby, for example, September 2020. Here's all these checklists. We had all these comments that are going through. Some of them were coming in from Slack. We have these steps. Now those checklists are for audit. So we have to go and ensure that we've done the epic piece, we've done this and we've done that. And within here, and here I can assign tests to people or whatever I want them to do, is something called Butler and Power-Ups. So what Power-Ups do is they find out when you hit one of these checklists and they'll create an automatic action next. Now that I hit right here, that her onboarding is done, it's gonna go and requisition a laptop for Gabby. I don't have to get involved. Once again, this is great workflow. The other tool I think you should understand is how do I go and, if you will, de-blemish images? And there are some pretty basic tools where you can get rid of, right here is an image, I want to get rid of those dots. This is called Pixelmator. I mean, Photoshop does this, but there's really lightweight tools that are simple for anybody to click this little Band-Aid and start taking stuff out of their pictures. That just makes me work faster and that kind of stuff. All right, so let's finish out in our last 7 meetings or minutes about meetings, because I really wanted to talk about these. I think you'll find that meetings, at least in my experience and in the clients I work with, are too frequent, poorly timed, and badly run. And so what we can do about that? The first thing is, executives love to get together and say, hey, let's have less meetings. But if they're the people that were creating all the meetings, well, you can't solve problems with the thinking that created them. So you have to reset and think differently. And I think I gave you a bunch of examples in Slack there where you could think differently. We don't need a status meeting. You can send the status in Slack, we review them, and we come to a meeting to solve a problem. And so many people now are involved in scheduling meetings that it's a culture change, and culture changes are tough. That's what I'm going to tell you. Like, everyone has the ability to schedule. You have the ability to say no. That's probably number one, and you should exercise that ability. But it has to be a culture change from the top. Now, a little different maybe if you're in a startup in a small company, but you're going to start to work with larger companies and so on and so forth. So here are some tips and some facts I'll give you about meetings. The average number of meetings is on the rise. Like average 23 hours a week for an executive from 1960s, which was 10. And what's happening is people are coming in on this half hour, and then you get a half hour off and that half hour, that we're making extinct think time. And that's critical. Bill Gates is very vocal about taking 2 to 3 hours of thinking time. And you need to do this. You need to disconnect and do that. And when you don't, you get these forced trade-offs. So folks aren't doing as good as a job on this because they went to a meeting, and they end up in the corner trap, I call it, where you use your personal time to go and catch up. And that's not well done. Like, that's not a good thing. So by and large, most people, they're not very happy with meetings and don't have meetings that are readouts, and make a no day. I think that would be my final tip here. Make a no day or a no afternoon. And no means no. It means that you can't go ahead and have meetings at those times. And you have to strongly enforce no means no culture. And finally, maybe I'll finish with this. It's about video casting. So I had a lot of pressure in my work, and people are like, oh, how come you're not on the video call? How come your video's not on, Paul? I turn on video selectively. And I got to tell you, if you spend all day on a video call, you start to see everyone as kind of like this, right? Like, that's what I get a memory of. But it seems to me that these Muppets can offer us some inspiration about mandating nonstop video call. And not just video has to be there to be engaging, right? I'm on video for this call. I don't need to be on video for every call. So here are some hints and tips. I just want you to think about culture in videos. One is they require more focus than face-to-face. It's one thing when you're chatting. When you're sitting there watching and your video cam is on, there is a lot of your energy that's going into that focus getting wasted because you're self-aware. You don't realize it. You can't stop it. It's physiological. This is the whole point, right? Not only are you being watched, like you're feeling this way because you know you're being watched the whole time. And I can assure you you're being watched. And I can assure you someone's going to pin you into a corner and they're going to like, oh, look at the shirt Paul's got on today. Or, wow, look at what's in the background of Paul. That's what happens when you broadcast nonstop. And paying attention to nonverbal cues can be taxing as well, but it can also be misleading. Like I try to look at someone and trying to figure out on a webcam how they feel. Well, you can't stay focused for 60 minutes. So you're going to catch me with a visual expression that may not convey what I want to say. And it's really important you understand that. And it's hard to relax in a conversation by video, especially with people you don't truly know or trust. You know, if I have a scratch and I'm scratching my forehead all the time because I have a skin condition, like I'm going to feel uncomfortable with people that I don't quite know or something like that. So as Beaker says, limit mandatory video calls to only those that are necessary and allow others to join in video at their leisure. If they want to, they'll join if they want to. I mean, you may have kids running around at home. You may have a messy home and be embarrassed and whatever it is, right? This is about kind of that empathy. And finally, on meetings, I think I'd say this, give meetings some love. There are some good meetings, and when you see them, make sure you know or they know that it was a good meeting. Don't forget the no day, and that is it. Kind of a run through there. I'm going to be in the Slack channel supporting you to become a virtual winner. I want you to pick up one or two of the technologies. Here are some hints you can do, and come and ask me for some help in Slack. So with that said, we're going to go to our next speaker, who is, wow, one incredible person, I will tell you. First off, she was a colleague of mine, and then she became a friend kind of as she left, and then now she's become an inspiration. Kelly Lyndgaard is the CEO of Unshattered. She's going to talk to you about social good and her path to entrepreneurship. Brilliant lady. This is a touching talk. I'm going to tell you this. We got those prizes. I'm going to go buy 3 purses from you, Kelly. We're going to put that into the prize bin. And I make a $1,000 donation to your organization because you're that incredible. And with that, I want you to take this away and go ahead.
Thank you so much. That was truly incredible, Paul. I wish that I would have heard all those things before I got this pitch together. Great job. That was really inspiring and a bunch of useful information. So thank you. One of my earliest memories, in my life is a holiday dinner where my grandparents were visiting, and there was shrimp on the table. And I leaned across the table and picked up a piece of shrimp and put it on my grandfather's plate. And my father looked at me and he said, Kelly, that's not good manners. We don't touch other people's food. Please let him serve himself. And I stood up on my chair and I put my hand on the table and I looked my father in the eye and I said, don't tell me. And I think that was the best explanation of my career path. An independent, challenge-seeking girl who always wanted to be in charge. I remember in college, I had the opportunity to work on a satellite instrument that was being launched to study the effects behind the northern lights and figure out how the energy was disrupting communications across the rest of the world. I was in what looked like a command center, very much like this NASA command center here. It was the first time that I was with a group of engineers and I felt like these are my people. I remember calling my mom from that room where we were doing telemetry testing and saying, I'm an engineer. It's just like I speak the language that I didn't know there was a group of people that had a hidden language, that I felt finally like I was a part of a group that I understood so well. My training is as an engineer and a physicist. And I know my story is no different than so many people that could be speaking to you today or that will be speaking to you in future meetings like this one. But it's my engineering background, studying physics, that really leads me to look at the world in terms of a set of problems and to look for the patterns that help me to understand the world and to figure out how to put together problems and solutions. So I'm going to share my journey with you today of my career path, how I left IBM to go into social entrepreneurship, to start a nonprofit organization, and why I felt that that was my calling. It took me all of my IBM career, 16 years, to really know myself. Like I said, I started as an engineer. I was in electromagnetic design, but very quickly I moved into a space where IBM was starting to do some consulting with outside organizations to solve technology problems for them. It was something we hadn't done before, to put our engineering services out for hire. And so I asked the executive team, can I just sit and watch? I just want to understand how a huge organization does something new like this. How do they build a new business? And so looking back, I know that that entrepreneurial spirit was in me all along. If you look even further back, you know those trips that you take home for the holidays and your mother sends you back home with a box full of stuff that was yours during childhood. A few years ago, I got one of those boxes to take home, and when I opened it, there was a book inside called Babysitting for Fun and Profit. So in retrospect, I think the engineering or the entrepreneurial spirit was in there all along. Over the years at IBM, I just was curious. I wanted to understand how the business worked, how it was growing, how we made strategic decisions, how we put together pieces of technology, how teams work together. These are the things that I learned about myself. And as you are moving into or moving further on your entrepreneurial journey, understanding these things will give you real strengths in building the business. What spaces do you want to serve in? What roles are you going to be best at in your own organization? What types of staff or skills do you need to hire to support yourself? So I know overall I'm a strategic problem solver. But as my career went along, I wound up in a very large part of the organization, having a lot of responsibility for a product. In my last role, I was managing over $1.1 billion of P&L. And while I was very proud of having gotten to that place, it was not nearly as satisfying as the rest of my career had been. I remember probably about 8 months into the job, somebody from another organization had come to visit me to get to know me a little bit. And she said, so you're the queen of hard things. And it was a moment where a light went on, where I just was starting to understand why the role that I was in wasn't quite fulfilling and wasn't quite exactly what I was expecting. One of my favorite articles is this. It's by Lou Adler. You can Google it, search for the title. There are only 4 jobs in the world. And Lou talks about the fact that you are either a thinker, a builder, an improver, or a producer. Thinkers are the people with big ideas. They conceptualize things, they see opportunity that others don't, they think about things that don't exist, and they know that those ideas can solve problems. Builders can take those big ideas and turn them into something tangible. So they have a real skill set of being able to go from amorphous ideas into something that actually exists. Improvers can take an organization or a system that's functioning and improve it by 10% or bring out the next level of efficiency or tweak it a little bit. And producers are the people that keep the train on the tracks and keep the business running. At that point in my career, I found myself very much in a producer or an improver role, but I'm naturally a thinker and a builder. And it was that conflict that I think was starting to suck the life out of me. And I was losing that creative opportunity that really just kept me alive and encouraged. I also was starting to experience feeling some stress within the organization, some burnout, because I wasn't truly where I was called and created to be. And so a key message to me was, when you're off course, change course. I wasn't stuck. I felt stuck for a while, but in doing that self-review of what I was really good at and what I desired to do, I realized that I could change the way that I was working and living. This was a really inspirational quote for me in making that change. It was an article by Shauna Nyquist, an author. She talked about some burnout in her life and how she was acting as a flight attendant to the planet and performing in roles that weren't really hers to own or weren't really using her gifts and strengths of the way she thought about the world. But she said connected to is so much richer than responsible for or impressed by. And that meant a lot to me as I looked at that combination of why I felt like I was the thinker or the builder who was stuck in a producer or improver role, and why I felt that I really wasn't having tangible impact on people in the job that I was doing. Oops. So this is my theory of the universe on how you make some of these decisions about where you can serve and use your skills. There are all of the possibilities. You have to make a decision to narrow each of these down and really make a choice of what you want to do with your time and resources. So possible. You could bake cakes. You could build cars. You could make shoes. You could run any kind of services organization. There's all kinds of possibilities out there for you to choose from. Could are the things that are what you're capable of. They match your personality, your strengths, your skill set. You could do them. It's not just the possibilities, but the things you're actually capable of. Maybe you can't make shoes. Maybe you can't bake cupcakes, but there are things that you are capable of doing that you and your organization could do. But even within that, there's a smaller subset of the things that you should do. Those are the things that align with your personal passions, values, priorities, and the things that are energizing to you in the way that you are created and designed and the way that you think about the world. From there, you have to narrow it down to what you will do, because like Paul said at the end of his, we all have limited time. And so we have to make choices about all of the things that are possible the set of things that we could do, the set of things that we should do because they align with our strengths and value, there's an even smaller set of the things that we're going to choose to do and we will commit to do. But if you don't follow through with an execution plan, it's still going to fall apart. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs get through the first 4 items on this, but then they don't set forth a strategy and figure out how to actually execute on the things that they're committed to. So, my calling and how it shifted. I saw a hard problem in the world. I knew that I had the skills to address it. I knew that working on that problem could have a major impact on people. There was an alignment of circumstances in my life where I was in a job that I didn't feel well structured for, and I had a strategy to solve the problem. So what happened was I was at an event at my church, and I heard a woman share her story of addiction and recovery. Emily had been 8 years old. She was from a broken home. Her mom was ill, and so at 8 years old, she was taking care of herself, her mom, and her younger brother. She had a 15-year-old friend who thought it would be funny to get an 8-year-old high and offered her drugs for the first time. She said within 10 years, she was a homeless IV drug user. Hearing her story that night absolutely changed my life. I used to be the person who thought that people that were struggling with addiction just needed to get their act together, be more responsible, stop sticking a needle in their arm. But I realized how young people start, that it's often as a result of so much pain in their lives that I had no idea people were experiencing. Most of my team will tell me that the drugs weren't the problem. The drugs were actually the solution to a different problem. Bad solution, but it was a choice that they were making to avoid painful feelings and circumstances that were happening in their lives. And so I got involved with a local recovery program, and I started to meet these women that were in recovery, that had these unbelievable stories that I had no idea. Like I said, they started young. I have somebody on my team who started at 5 years old. This was Dee Dee, born in prison. And they were truly doing the hard work of getting well and getting to sobriety. But as I got to know their stories, I understood how widespread this is. 21% of Canadians will meet the criteria of the definition that they will struggle with addiction during their lifetime. There's an 80% relapse rate for opiate users. Those relapses often tend to be fatal. I was watching these women fight so hard for a year in a residential program to get well and to get to sobriety, go back to where they were using, oftentimes relapse, and a lot of times that would lead to death. It was because they were lacking, in most cases, job skills. They were often lacking in education, but they were most importantly lacking a safe community to go back home to. That seemed like a problem that I could solve. And so this is when I left IBM and created Unshattered. We're a nonprofit organization, and we make premium sustainable handbags that end the addiction relapse cycle. We make all of our bags out of upcycled materials. So we use things like sets from Broadway shows, that bright bag there in the center. We use retired military uniforms. We use scrap from premium manufacturers. And so those bags are a direct reflection of the lives of the women who are making them. Something that's discarded and without purpose, thrown out and remade into something beautiful, purposeful, and meaningful. Each of our bags has 3 secrets. This is one of them. Each bag includes a gold seam somewhere in the bag. That's our nod to the Japanese art form of kintsugi. When a piece of pottery was broken, they would use gold in the cracks to put it back together. That was so beautiful that it became a form of art. That term kintsugi means more beautiful for having been broken. In addition, we have 2 others. We name every bag that we make after somebody that we know of that's still struggling with addiction. So our team collects those names from agencies that are working with people still on the street struggling with addiction. We pray for those names from the point where we cut the kit, sew the bag, do quality control, package up, or put it on the shelf for a customer, and let our customers know that they're carrying that bag in honor of somebody that we hope finds healing just like the women on our team have. In addition, there's a secret message inside the liner of each bag. You can't see it when it's finished, but it's a message from the artist, maybe her number of days of sobriety, maybe a lyric from a song that she loves, something meaningful to her inside of every bag. Our mission is to end relapse by providing pathways toward economic independence and sustained sobriety. We do this by wrapping our employment around a continued personal professional development curriculum. And so inside of their work week, in 40 hours, each individual is getting 4 hours of paid time for personal professional development. So we provide things like therapeutic counseling. We do lunch and learn sessions once a week where the member of the community will come in and teach anything from budgeting to creative writing to healthy grocery shopping, life skills that these women missed along the way. We also have several women that are now pursuing higher education. So I have two getting degrees this fall, one of whom will be the first in her family to get a college degree. The model seems to be working. In 4.5 years of providing full-time employment for women in recovery, we've seen every single one of our employees continue to choose sobriety during their time with us as employees, which is just incredible. That relapse rate, like we said early in the presentation, for in particular opioid users is estimated to be over 80%. Depending on what substance they're using, it's definitely north of 50, but if it's an opioid user, that's above 80%, and that very often leads to death. So it's that relapse cycle that we're trying to break. But it's not just that, we're trying to get them on their feet economically. It's my belief that when women have economic stability, they can make better choices in their life. They can choose where they live. They can choose how they get place to place. And so one of the other things we're very proud of is that 100% of our women have been able to move out of transitional housing into independent living within 12 months of their employment with Unshattered. Our structure is that we are a 501c3 nonprofit social enterprise. 100% of our sales revenue goes directly to wages and benefits for women in recovery, and donations and grants fund our job creation engine. And so we need both of those to stay alive. I chose a nonprofit model, even though I spent a lot of time really evaluating what the right one for us is. Some people choose to do a B Corp. There's a new model called the L3C. Some people choose just a straight for-profit company. I chose nonprofit primarily so that we could open up that channel for companies to be donating their scrap materials and use that resource for free to keep our costs down. And because I didn't want there to be any mistake that we were truly about the mission of helping women thrive and get back on their feet and maintain their sobriety. When COVID hits, I wasn't sure we were going to make it. We're here in New York. We're about 60 miles north of New York City. So of course we were one of the epicenters here in the United States. In the middle of March, the governor of New York shut down all non-essential businesses. So at 11 o'clock on a Friday, he said that all employees had to go home. But in that same meeting, he also announced that there was a need for personal protective equipment. Within 24 hours, led by our team, Women in Recovery, they pivoted our manufacturing. They consulted with a physician and surgeon from a local hospital. They designed a mask that they could provide to the public and completely changed our entire organization to become a maker of personal protective equipment. Our story was so impressive that we were featured both on NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt here in the US and on CBS. So it was really exciting to see these women take the reins and lead the business. On top of that, I very surprisingly lost my very healthy 69-year-old father 5 days after the shutdown. So it was a team of women who within 12 to 18 months prior had been some homeless, some incarcerated, all struggling with addiction, that changed our business around and enabled us to become a maker of masks. That meant that we were able to donate 9,000 masks to our local community. We provided those to over 242 facilities near the area here where we live in New York. I really think that this was proof of our model. It was really important to me to keep our women employed, to keep the rhythm of work, to keep them engaged in the community that we create, to keep them getting a paycheck. I know that when women have purpose, community, and economic stability, they can withstand an awful lot of external pressure. This is Lois. She started her addiction at the age of 5 years old at the hands of a father who wanted to abuse her. But she was so proud of the work that she was doing that she said, please thank the community for allowing us to perform such a noble task. Not only was this a shift in our business model, or a product, it also was a shift in our business model. So it changed our structure, which, as I said before, was selling products. That goes, 100% of that goes directly to the wages and benefits for women in recovery. So generally 70% of our budget was going directly into the pockets of the women that we serve, and 30% was coming through donations and grants to fund our job creation engine. This totally shifted it because it felt wildly inappropriate to be making personal protective equipment and charging for it. So we shifted to donate everything that we were making. So for 3.5 months, not only did we completely change our product and production line, but we changed our business model to be donating everything that we were making and asked our community to allow us to count on them to fund the work of our team and to help keep every one of our employees employed during this time. The community stepped up. So once we got through those 3.5 months and we were able to go back to making product, our business model shifted in another way. Up through the end of last year, 86% of our sales had been face-to-face. Now, 100% of our sales are online. So we saw a huge shift, not only in the way that we had to sell, but of course in the way that people were shopping. You also saw people shift to much more ethical buying. And so there continues to be, the pandemic has accelerated it, a shift in people's priority in terms of the products that they're buying. I'm just going to make a point. If those of you are thinking about doing social enterprise businesses, I hate to see sort of the greenwashing happen in the social enterprise space. In fact, I just purchased from a company that I love, that I support, that brands themselves as ethical shopping and investing in artisans. And I purchased several things when they had a sale a few weeks ago. And would you know, when that box showed up the other day and I flipped over everything that I made, every single item in that box had a sticker on the bottom that said made in China. So if you're starting businesses like this, please be true to the mission of what you're doing, investing in the people that are disadvantaged, that you can really, truly make a difference for. This is our leadership team. Women who have had labels put on them for their entire lives about who they are, what they may or may not be capable of. Amanda started her journey of addiction because of bullying after her family moved to a new location. And so she was teased by classmates in about 9th grade, started smoking and partying and drinking, thinking it would help her fit in more. She got into a car accident because she was drunk, was prescribed prescription painkillers, that then evolved into a heroin addiction. So she spent almost 15 years struggling with addiction, prostitution, incarceration. She's now our product design lead and manager on the team. She's the one I was speaking about that's going to be the first in her family to get a college degree. So what we're really trying to do is take women like these and help them move away from the labels that are being placed on them and help them understand who they're called, created, and have the potential to be. It's not just sewing that the women do for Unchattered. They do everything from product photography, running the back end of our website. They run our boutique. They travel around the country and sell our product. They manage the entire production floor. They help plan the curriculum that we're using to train new women. They train everybody new that joins the team. So we're really trying to provide a full skill set where they can move forward and thrive. What I want to leave you with is a few thoughts on your own organization as you're building it. We had the privilege of meeting with the Surgeon General last year. The U.S. Surgeon General has a brother who is in jail for drug crimes. And so he spent a lot of time thinking about these issues. But one of the things that he said in his work and research is that people in recovery are the most reliable employees because the rhythm and community of work is so important to them that they rarely miss a day. That is absolutely true. I will tell you that these women that I work with are the most tenacious, committed, creative, hardworking women. The community that they have created is beautiful. The way that they pour into each other and hope for each other and challenge one another is one of the most amazing things I have ever witnessed. This is Emily, whose story I shared at the beginning of this, who had started her drug use at 8 years old. This is Emily speaking at the U.S. White House and telling her story of being an employee, a mother, a homeowner, and somebody in recovery. It is possible for those that have struggled with addiction to truly thrive and overcome it But sometimes we have to pave that road and close the gap for people because they don't have the resources. Early in the beginning of Unshattered, I thought the problem that I was solving was just providing job skills training. But what I realized was it was the community that really mattered. When people don't have any choice but to go back to where they were using, those people, places, and things are too familiar and they just can't maintain it. It's not just job skills. We realized that we had to close the gap on giving women transportation, providing affordable housing in the beginning, providing them purpose, meaning, community, and employment has been our secret. But I just want to encourage you that as you are building your own businesses, it's possible for you to thrive. It's possible for your business to thrive, but it's also possible for people to thrive because of the work that you are doing. Thank you so much. It was an honor to speak to all of you guys today. Paul and the team, thank you for inviting me. And I would love to answer questions in Slack and hear from all of you. Thank you.
Wow, what a day. Thank you, Kelly, so much for sharing the story. It was really, really moving, really interesting. And part of what I hear from you when you speak is the building of community and how important it is. And so on that note, this is the first of 9 presentations, and we're really hoping that everybody will join us for each and every one of them, because there's going to be something to learn at every single one. The next one is October 29th. Helen Stonebus is going to be presenting. She's a Hall of Fame athlete, an entrepreneur, and a community leader, and you will not want to miss her presentation. Also, as part of your challenge, I know Paul's going to give you some challenges, and Paul's going to put those in the Slack channel just so you make sure that you see them. But we will also be sending out a survey, and I wish I'd known about the survey tool in Slack. We might have to rethink our Slack program a little bit. But anyways, Paul learned something new today. Thank you for that. That is part of the challenge for this week. So you have a couple of challenges. I hope that you will go visit Kelly's website. We'll make sure we have the links available. And for those of you asking, we'll be putting the recording of this in, you can find it at emergingtechnologies.ca. Our website's set up, and you'll find Recover and Thrive right there in the top right-hand corner. I also want to hand it back over to Sabrina. This is a team effort. Couldn't do it without the Small Business Center and the BRNE teams. We are so grateful for all of you. You make these things happen for our entrepreneurs. So Sabrina, back to you.
Thanks again, Lee. Thank you, Kelly, and thank you, Paul. What a wonderful presentation. Again, Kelly, very inspiring and lots to take away. And Paul, I certainly learned a lot, tech skills and upgrades that I need to pursue. So thank you very much, and your enthusiasm is just intoxicating. Thank you everyone for joining us. I hope to see you next time at our next webinar, and please connect with us on Slack and reach out with any questions you may have. So thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your day.